Sign here and here. Dominic Vega's deep voice cut through the silence of the honeymoon suite as he slid the leather folder across the marble coffee table. His wedding ring caught the light, a cold glint matching his businesslike demeanor. Aria Chen stood frozen in her wedding dress, the weight of silk and expectation suddenly suffocating. Just hours ago, they'd exchanged vows before 500 guests. Now, alone in the presidential suite, her new husband was handing her divorce papers? "I don't understand," she whispered, fingers trembling as she opened the folder. Inside lay meticulously prepared legal documents, a divorce agreement dated exactly 1 year from today, a separate property contract protecting her assets, and transfer papers for 30% of Vega Industries shares. Dominic loosened his tie and stepped back. "You never have to share my bed, Aria. This marriage is strictly business." Her mind raced through the whirlwind of the past 3 months. Her father's company collapsing, Dominic's unexpected proposal, the rushed engagement. She'd prepared herself for many scenarios tonight, but not this. "Why?" she managed to ask, her voice barely audible. Dominic's expression softened for the first time since she'd met him. "I needed a wife to secure the Nakamura deal. They only work with family businesses." He took a pillow from the bed and moved toward the sofa. "Your father's situation was convenient timing." As he turned away, Aria realized the man she'd just married was nothing like she'd imagined, and their story was only beginning. Welcome back to Mr. Ross Story Trail, where we bring you extraordinary tales that challenge your expectations. If you're new here, you've joined us at the perfect moment. This story of Aria and Dominic might be our most shocking yet. Before we dive deeper into this twisted arrangement, take a second to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this marriage of convenience that's anything but convenient. Today's story explores how a powerful CEO's calculated business move transforms into something neither party expected. Was Dominic Vega a calculating villain using Aria as a pawn? Or was there more beneath his cold exterior? The answer might surprise you. Every week we deliver stories that not only entertain but also reveal profound truths about human nature. Your subscription helps our channel grow and allows us to keep bringing these compelling narratives straight to you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe now. It takes just one click but means everything to our storytelling community. Now, let's return to that luxurious honeymoon suite where Aria's world has just been turned upside down by her new husband's unexpected proposition. Aria sank onto the edge of the bed, still in her wedding gown, the documents trembling in her hands. The stakes couldn't be higher. Her father's company, Chen Innovations, employed over 300 people whose livelihoods depended on its survival. One signature had saved them all, but at what personal cost? "The Nakamura contract is worth billions," Dominic explained, standing by the window overlooking the glittering city below. "They've refused to work with single executives for generations. Their family values dictate they only partner with other family businesses. The moonlight cast half his face in shadow. This arrangement gives us both what we need. Your father's company survives, his employees keep their jobs, and you walk away in 12 months with enough wealth to never worry again." What Dominic couldn't possibly know was that Aria had graduated top of her business class. She understood mergers and acquisitions better than most. This wasn't just about saving her father's legacy. The 30% share transfer represented something unprecedented in Vega Industries history. "Why such generous terms?" she asked, her analytical mind cutting through her emotional shock. 30% makes me your largest individual shareholder." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Perhaps I'm not the villain in this story." The year ahead loomed like an elaborate chess game. They would need to convince the world, including the shrewd Nakamura family, that their marriage was genuine. Meals together, public appearances, charity galas, board meetings, a carefully choreographed dance between two strangers, bound by signatures and secrets. Neither could have predicted how their arrangement would evolve, nor how the boundaries they established that wedding night would blur in ways neither was prepared for. Their journey would challenge everything they thought they knew about business, loyalty, and ultimately, love. Have you ever wondered what you'd sacrifice for your family? Dominic's question hung in the air between them. He'd moved to pour 2 glasses of champagne, a wedding toast under the strangest circumstances. Aria studied her new husband's face, searching for clues to his character. 35 years old, self-made billionaire, notorious for his ruthless business tactics. Yet here he was, offering her an escape hatch from their marriage before it had even begun. "Most people believe I forced you into this," he continued, handing her a glass. "The cruel tycoon who purchased himself a bride. What would they think if they knew I was sleeping on the couch?" The champagne tasted bitter despite its quality. "Does it matter what they think? In business? Always." His eyes met hers. "Have you considered what this year will demand from you? The scrutiny, the lies, the constant performance? How many women throughout history had entered marriages not of their choosing?" Arya wasn't unique, except perhaps in the exit strategy already planned before the honeymoon began. Modern arranged marriage with a prenuptial divorce. "You're trapped in a gilded cage of my making," Dominic acknowledged, loosening his cufflinks. "For that, I apologize." The weight of her decision pressed down on Arya's shoulders. 1 year of her life traded for hundreds of livelihoods, a business arrangement dressed up in white lace and flowers. What would you do in her position? Could you share a life with a stranger, pretending affection that doesn't exist? And what happens when pretense begins feeling less like acting and more like reality? Stay with us to witness the extraordinary evolution of this paper marriage. The contract may have been signed in ink, but the story ahead would be written in something far more permanent. 3 months before that fateful wedding night, Arya Chen's life had looked entirely different. At 32, she had carved out her place in the marketing world through intelligence and tenacity, rather than her family name. Despite being the daughter of business magnate Richard Chen, founder of Chen Innovations, she had deliberately started her career at competing firms. "I want to earn my success," she had told her father when declining his offer to head Chen's marketing department after college graduation. Instead, she'd built her reputation at Maxwell & Reed, climbing from junior copywriter to senior marketing director within 8 years. Her corner office overlooked the San Francisco Bay, a view she'd earned through countless late nights and groundbreaking campaigns. The industry recognized her talent. Her strategy for revitalizing an aging tech brand had won 3 national awards and increased their market share by 22% in a single quarter. But Arya wanted more than professional acclaim. Her dream was to launch Prism, her own marketing consultancy focused on helping female entrepreneurs build their brands. She'd been saving aggressively, developing her business plan during stolen moments between projects. 6 more months, she had calculated. 6 more months and she'd have enough capital to resign and pursue her vision. "Miss Chen, your father is on line 1. Her assistant's voice interrupted her review of quarterly projections one Tuesday afternoon. "He says it's urgent." Richard Chen rarely called during business hours. When he did, it was typically to share good news about stock prices or to invite her to industry events. The tremor in his voice that day signaled something very different. "Arya, I need you to come to the office. Immediately." The Chen Innovations headquarters occupied the top floors of a downtown high-rise, its glass and steel architecture a testament to Richard's modern vision. For 30 years, the company had pioneered breakthrough medical technologies, from artificial heart valves to advanced prosthetics. Their latest venture, a revolutionary non-invasive glucose monitoring system, had positioned them for their biggest success yet, or so everyone had believed. The clinical trials failed, Richard explained. His normally commanding presence diminished as he slumped in his chair. The boardroom felt cavernous with just the two of them. "The data showed unexpected side effects. We can't bring it to market." "But that's your flagship product," Arya said, her marketing mind immediately calculating the fallout. "The one you've invested." 70% of our capital, he finished, plus the loans. The magnitude hit her like a physical blow. "How bad?" "Bankruptcy is bad," Richard admitted, sliding financial reports across the table. "We've got 8 weeks of operating capital left, maybe less." As Arya reviewed the documents, the reality grew bleaker. Chen Innovations had bet everything on this product launch. Research and development costs had consumed their reserves. Manufacturing facilities had been retooled, marketing campaigns prepared, distribution channels secured, all for a product that would never see the light of day. "There must be something we can salvage," she insisted, her mind racing through options. "Other products in development, assets we could liquidate, emergency investors." Richard shook his head. "I've explored everything. The board is preparing to file for Chapter 11 next week. I wanted you to hear it from me first." The implications extended far beyond finances. Chen Innovations employed 312 people, many of whom had been with the company for decades. Families with mortgages, children in college, medical needs. "What about the employees?" Arya asked. Richard's eyes glistened. "That's what keeps me awake at night. Some of these people have been with me since we operated out of my garage. Lisa Johnson's husband is fighting cancer. Marcus Williams just had twins. The executive team is taking no severance, but it barely makes a dent." The company wasn't just Richard's legacy. It represented his life's purpose. Chen Innovations had developed medical devices that saved thousands of lives annually. Their prosthetic limbs had transformed countless patients' mobility. Their heart valves pumped in chests across the globe. "I failed them all," Richard whispered. The news spread through the company like wildfire. Arya witnessed the transformation during the following days as she took a leave of absence from her job to help her father navigate the crisis. The vibrant, innovative atmosphere of Chen Innovations dissolved into hushed conversations and tearful phone calls as employees updated their resumes and calculated remaining mortgage payments. The research scientists who had dedicated years to improving human health now wondered how they would afford their children's education. Engineers cleared personal items from desks while reminiscing about projects that had changed medicine forever. Worst affected was Richard himself. At 68, he had planned to transition to chairman emeritus within 2 years, enjoying a well-earned semi-retirement while mentoring the next generation. Now, his legacy was crumbling. The man who had never taken a sick day suddenly looked a decade older, moving slowly through hallways where employees averted their eyes, unsure whether to offer condolences or accusations. This company was supposed to outlive me, he told Arya one evening, as they reviewed increasingly desperate options in his office. It was supposed to be my gift to the world. When Dominic Vega's office called requesting a meeting, Richard had initially dismissed it as vultures circling. Vega Industries specialized in acquiring distressed companies, often dismantling them for parts. He'll strip our patents and fire everyone, Richard had said. That's not a solution. But with no alternatives materializing and the bankruptcy filing looming, they reluctantly agreed to hear his offer. Neither was prepared for what Dominic Vega would propose: a full financial rescue with no layoffs, continued operation under the Chen name, and Richard remaining as chairman emeritus. The price? A marriage contract between Dominic and Arya. This is absurd, Arya had sputtered when Dominic outlined his terms. This isn't the 19th century. You can't simply purchase a bride. I'm not purchasing anything, Dominic had replied coolly. I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement. You maintain complete autonomy in the marriage. I simply need a wife on paper. When asked why, he'd offered only vague references to a critical business deal that required him to be married. The details, he insisted, were confidential. As Arya walked through the research lab later that day, watching scientists carefully packing away life-saving projects, the weight of 300 livelihoods pressed upon her shoulders. Her dreams of launching PRISM suddenly seemed small compared to the collective dreams dying around her. That night, she called Dominic Vega and accepted his proposal. Dominic Vega's name evoked visceral reactions in business circles. The 35-year-old CEO had built Vega Industries from a modest tech startup into a global conglomerate through what financial newspapers delicately called aggressive acquisition strategies. His competitors used different terminology: ruthless, calculating, merciless. He dismantled Horizon Tech overnight, Arya recalled her father saying years earlier. 4,000 employees were gone by morning, patents absorbed, executives blacklisted. When Dominic strode into Chen Innovation's conference room for their scheduled meeting, Arya had expected a shark, teeth bared, circling for the kill. Instead, she encountered a man of surprising composure. Tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, he carried himself with quiet confidence rather than domineering arrogance. His handshake was firm but not intimidating, his voice measured and articulate. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Chen, Miss Chen," he said, placing a slim leather portfolio on the table. No entourage accompanied him, unusual for a man of his stature. "I've reviewed your situation thoroughly. I believe we can reach a mutually beneficial arrangement." Richard Chen's skepticism was evident. "With respect, Mr. Vega, my company isn't a typical acquisition target for you. Our value is in our glucose monitoring technology, which has failed clinical trials. Our remaining patents hardly justify your interest." Dominic's dark eyes revealed nothing as he opened his portfolio. "I'm not interested in dismantling Chen Innovations. I'm proposing a complete financial rescue with no layoffs. Your company continues operating under its current name. You remain as chairman emeritus." Arya leaned forward. "What's the catch?" A ghost of a smile touched Dominic's lips. "Direct. I appreciate that." He turned to face her fully. "The catch, Miss Chen, is that I require you to marry me." The silence that followed felt eternal. Richard's face flushed crimson. Arya stared, certain she'd misheard. "I beg your pardon?" she finally managed. "A marriage of convenience," Dominic clarified, his tone unchanged, as though proposing a standard business clause. 1 year minimum, public appearances as a couple, private arrangements entirely separate. Richard stood abruptly. "This meeting is over, Dad," Arya started, her analytical mind already processing implications despite her shock. "No," Richard said firmly. "We are not that desperate." Dominic remained seated unperturbed. Chen Innovations files for bankruptcy next week. 312 employees lose their jobs. Life-saving research ends. Your family legacy vanishes. He closed his portfolio. "I'd say that qualifies as desperate." "Why?" Arya asked, keeping her father from escorting Dominic out. "Why marriage? Why me?" "I require a wife for specific business purposes. The reasons are confidential." Dominic's gaze was steady. "You're educated, professional, and photogenic. You understand business. You're not currently in a relationship. You're ideal." "How could you possibly know?" she began, I do thorough research before any acquisition. He stood smoothly. Take 24 hours to consider. My terms are non-negotiable, but I'm prepared to be generous regarding financial arrangements. After he departed, Richard exploded. The audacity! To think I would sell my daughter like some medieval duke. Absolutely not. But as the initial outrage faded, cold reality remained. The bankruptcy filing was days away. 312 families waited for a miracle, and Dominic Vega had offered one with an impossible price tag. You can't seriously consider this, Mia. Aria's best friend since college said that evening over emergency cocktails. It's insane. It's practically human trafficking. It's a business arrangement, Aria corrected, though the words felt hollow. People marry for worse reasons. Like what? Name one worse reason than saving your dad's company. Aria sipped her martini. Love. Mia wasn't amused. This isn't funny. What kind of man proposes marriage as a business transaction? What does he really want? That question haunted Aria through a sleepless night. Dominic Vega could have any woman he desired. His wealth, power, and striking looks made him one of the country's most eligible bachelors despite his cutthroat reputation. Why pursue a sham marriage? What was he hiding? The next morning, Aria requested a private meeting with Dominic at his downtown headquarters. The building itself embodied his business philosophy. Efficient, impressive, slightly intimidating. His office occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views. You've made your decision, he observed as she entered. I have questions first, Aria replied, refusing the offered seat. Standing gave her a small sense of control. What exactly would this marriage entail? Public appearances as a couple, attending business functions together, living at the same address. My penthouse has 6 bedrooms and separate wings. Your privacy would be respected. His expression remained neutral. Physical aspects are not part of this arrangement. Duration? Minimum 1 year, maximum 2. And Chen Innovations? Full financial rescue. No layoffs. Your father remains in his position with full honors. Aria studied him, searching for deception. Why not just acquire the company through normal channels? Something flickered in his eyes, the first crack in his perfect composure. My reasons are private. Your answer, Miss Chen? The weight of 312 families pressed upon her. Her father's legacy, her own ambitions, temporarily delayed but not abandoned. If I agree, she said carefully, I want guarantees, legal protection, my own financial independence. Naturally, my attorneys will prepare a comprehensive prenuptial agreement protecting both our interests. The clinical approach to marriage should have repulsed her. Instead, it clarified the transaction. This wasn't about emotion or attraction. It was business, territory she understood. Then yes, she said, the words changing her future irrevocably. I accept your proposal. His nod was almost imperceptible. The legal team will contact you this afternoon. We should announce our engagement immediately. I suggest a narrative of a whirlwind romance that we've kept private until now. As she turned to leave, a question escaped her. Do you do this often, Mr. Vega? Arrange marriages as business strategies? For the first time, something like genuine emotion crossed his face, a fleeting vulnerability quickly masked. No, Miss Chen, this is a first for me as well. 2 days later, their engagement announcement dominated business news. Photos of them dining at exclusive restaurants appeared in society pages. A stunning emerald ring, selected by his assistant, adorned her finger. The financial rescue of Chen Innovations was positioned as a wedding gift from an adoring fiancé. Behind closed doors, Aria signed hundreds of pages of legal documents. The prenuptial agreement was ironclad, surprisingly generous, and utterly heartbreaking in its detailed provisions for their eventual separation. I want to pause here and ask, what would you do if faced with Aria's impossible choice? Would you sacrifice a year of your life in a loveless marriage to save hundreds of jobs and your family's legacy? Or would you refuse on principle, regardless of the consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious what choice you'd make in this devil's bargain. Remember to like this video if you're enjoying the story so far, and subscribe for more compelling narratives every day. America's most eligible bachelor off the market. Power couple alert. Tech titans unite. Whirlwind romance inside the Vega Chen engagement. The headlines exploded across business journals, society pages, and social media within hours of their announcement. What had been a private business arrangement suddenly became the most scrutinized romance in the country. Paparazzi materialized outside Aria's apartment building, stalking her morning coffee runs and weekend errands. You'll need to move into the penthouse immediately, Dominic informed her during their first strategy meeting, sliding a security keycard across the table. Separate bedrooms, as agreed, but the press is watching too closely. We can't risk them discovering we're living apart. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of an exclusive downtown high-rise, a masterpiece of modern architecture with sweeping views and clinical elegance. Like its owner, the space was impressive but revealed little. Minimal personal touches, museum-quality art selected by a decorator, furniture chosen for aesthetic rather than comfort. "Your suite is in the East Wing," Dominic explained during the abbreviated tour. "I've had the locks reprogrammed for your privacy." Aria's suite turned out to be larger than her entire apartment. Bedroom, sitting room, walk-in closet, and marble bathroom with a soaking tub overlooking the city. Beautiful but sterile, like checking into a luxury hotel. "I had my assistant stock the closet with appropriate attire for upcoming events," he added. "Designer options in your size, wear whatever you prefer." The surreal nature of her situation crystallized as Aria opened the massive closet to find hundreds of thousands of dollars in designer clothing, tags still attached, organized by color indication. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, business attire, casual options, a complete wardrobe curated for the future Mrs. Vega. "This is excessive," she murmured. "It's necessary," Dominic corrected. "You'll be photographed constantly. Image matters." Their first public appearance came 3 days later, a charity gala benefiting children's cancer research. As they stepped from the limousine onto the red carpet, camera flashes exploded like lightning. Dominic's hand rested lightly on the small of her back, guiding her forward. His touch was impersonal yet possessive, a perfect performance. "Mr. Vega, Miss Shen, how did you meet? When's the wedding?" "Aria, look this way." Dominic fielded questions with practiced ease, weaving their fabricated love story, while Aria smiled beside him, nodding at appropriate moments. They had rehearsed extensively, aligning every detail of their fictional romance. "We met at the Tech Innovation Conference in Tokyo last year," he told reporters smoothly. Some connections are simply undeniable. The lies tasted bitter on Aria's tongue when she had to elaborate. Sometimes the right person comes along when you least expect it. Inside the gala, Dominic transformed. The coolly efficient businessman became charming, attentive, his hand rarely leaving hers as they navigated the crowd. He whispered names and details about approaching guests, positioning Aria for social success. Harold Mitchell, a cybersecurity fortune, donates millions annually. Wife Teresa collects French Impressionist art. Daughter at Yale. With his guidance, Aria dazzled the room, converting potential skeptics into admirers. By evening's end, society matrons were cooing over the romance, business associates were congratulating Dominic on finding his match, and several women had pulled Aria aside to gush. "He looks at you differently," one veteran socialite confided. "Dominic has always been so closed off. You've changed him." In the limousine afterward, they dropped the facade. Dominic loosened his tie, expression returning to its usual reserve. "You performed exceptionally well." "Perform being the operative word," Aria replied, slipping off her painful heels. "Is it always like this for you? Constant calculation?" Something flashed in his eyes, perhaps recognition. "Yes, but you'll adjust." The engagement period raced forward at breakneck speed. Their wedding date, just 8 weeks after the proposal, raised eyebrows, but the narrative of passionate whirlwind romance provided convenient cover. Behind closed doors, teams of wedding planners, attorneys, and PR specialists orchestrated the event like a military campaign. Between public appearances, Aria and Dominic rarely interacted in the penthouse. He worked punishing hours, often returning after midnight and leaving before dawn. She established her own routine, converting one of the spare rooms into a home office where she developed her PRISM business plan in secret. Yet occasional moments punctured Dominic's carefully maintained facade, revealing glimpses of something more complex beneath the surface. Once, during a rare shared breakfast, Aria mentioned her volunteer work with a youth literacy program. "I'll need to cancel my Tuesday sessions with the children. The wedding planning conflicts." Dominic looked up from his financial reports, brow furrowed. "Don't cancel. I'll have the planning meetings rescheduled, but the Nakamura dinner can wait." His tone left no room for argument. Children's education takes priority. Another evening, she found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., suit jacket discarded, scrolling through medical research on his tablet. "Trouble sleeping?" she asked, pouring herself water. He didn't look up. Shen Innovation's glucose monitoring system had potential. The side effects could be mitigated with recalibration of the enzyme catalyst. Aria paused. "You've been studying my father's failed product? It deserves another approach." He finally met her gaze. 300,000 Americans die annually from diabetes complications. Your father's technology could reduce that by 60%. His unexpected depth in such moments confused her. Was this the same man known for destroying companies without remorse? The same calculated businessman who had essentially purchased a wife? As their wedding approached, Aria's uncertainty grew. Moving through dress fittings, menu tastings, and venue inspections felt like an elaborate dream. The woman smiling from bridal magazine covers wasn't her. It was a character she played with increasing unease. "Are you sure about this?" Mia asked during the final dress fitting. "You can still back out." Aria studied her reflection in the custom designer gown. 312 families, Mia. That's who I'm marrying. But private doubts plagued her. What did Dominic really want? The Nakamura deal explanation seemed plausible yet insufficient. Why her specifically? Why marriage rather than some other business solution? 1 week before the wedding, a business emergency called Dominic to Tokyo. Upon his return, something had changed. His usual composure seemed strained, his focus distracted during their final planning meetings. The night before their wedding, Aria found him on the penthouse terrace, staring out at the city lights, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. "Second thoughts?" she asked, keeping her distance. "No." His answer came too quickly. "You, 312 families," she repeated her mantra. He turned, studying her with unusual intensity. "I'm sorry it came to this, Aria. You deserve better than a business transaction." The unexpected apology caught her off guard. "We all make choices. Some choices follow us forever." For a moment, vulnerability cracked through his armor. Then it vanished, replaced by his usual controlled expression. "The car will collect you at 9 tomorrow. Everything is arranged." That night, Aria barely slept. Tomorrow she would pledge herself to a stranger, a man whose true motives remained obscured. The contract specified 1 year of her life, but something whispered that the costs might prove much higher. As dawn broke on her wedding day, Aria stood at her bedroom window watching the city awaken. Somewhere across town, a team of decorators transformed a grand ballroom into a fairy tale setting for a romance that didn't exist. Florists arranged exotic blooms for centerpieces. Caterers prepared gourmet meals for 500 guests who believed they were witnessing true love. The knock on her door signaled the arrival of the glam team. Hairstylists, makeup artists, the designer for final gown adjustments. "Ready to become Mrs. Vega?" the cheerful wedding coordinator asked. Aria summoned her most convincing smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." If you're watching this video and have thoughts about arranged marriages or relationships formed under pressure, hit that like button. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice for your family's sake? Sometimes the most challenging decisions come disguised as opportunities. Let me know in the comments if you think Aria is making the right choice or if you'd handle things differently in her position. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel transformed into a scene from a modern fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across white orchid arrangements that towered over each table. Hand-calligraphed place cards guided 500 guests to their seats. Business titans, political figures, celebrities, and social elites assembled to witness the union of two powerful families. In the bridal suite, Aria sat motionless before an ornate mirror as stylists made final adjustments to her appearance. The custom Marchesa gown, a masterpiece of silk, lace, and tiny pearls, had required 12 artisans working around the clock for 3 weeks. Diamond earrings, worth more than her former apartment, adorned her ears. Her makeup was flawless, her hair arranged in an elegant updo that complemented the gown's intricate neckline. "You look perfect," her mother Margaret whispered, eyes glistening with pride. "Like a princess." Aria managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her mother knew nothing of the arrangement. Richard had insisted on protecting her from the truth, allowing her to believe the fairy tale of a whirlwind romance. "Are you feeling okay, darling?" Margaret asked, noticing her daughter's pallor beneath expertly applied blush. "Wedding day nerves are normal. I'm fine, Mom. Just overwhelmed." The half-truth came easily now, after weeks of practice. A gentle knock preceded the arrival of her father. The stylists discreetly exited, leaving the family alone. Richard Chen looked distinguished in his tuxedo, but the shadows beneath his eyes betrayed the weight he carried. "You look beautiful," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Aria, he faltered, glancing at his wife. "Margaret, could you check on the flower arrangements?" he asked. "I heard the wedding planner mention something about the centerpieces." Once alone with his daughter, Richard's composed facade crumbled. "You can still change your mind. We'll face bankruptcy together. I've been speaking with some contacts about positions for our key employees." "Dad, stop." Aria squeezed his hand. "The decision is made." "This is wrong," he insisted. "You're sacrificing yourself because of my failure." "I'm making a choice," she corrected. 1 year of my life in exchange for hundreds of livelihoods. It's a fair trade." Richard's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. No father should ask this of his daughter. "You didn't ask. I offered." Aria stood carefully, mindful of her gown. "Now put on your happy face. We have a wedding to attend." The ceremony proceeded with military precision. Aria floated down the aisle on her father's arm, a vision in white against the backdrop of cascading white roses and twinkling lights. The string quartet performed Pachelbel's canon as 500 guests stood in reverence. At the altar, Dominic waited, tall, commanding, and unexpectedly handsome in his custom tuxedo. Their eyes met, and something unreadable passed between them. For a flickering moment, she thought she detected hesitation in his gaze, perhaps even regret. Then his expression smoothed into practiced charm as he took her hand from her father's. The officiant spoke of love, commitment, and partnership, words that hung hollow in the space between bride and groom. When prompted for vows, Dominic's voice carried clearly through the ballroom. "Aria, I promise to honor and respect you, to build a life worthy of your partnership, and to place your well-being above my own ambitions." Simple, elegant phrases that sounded sincere despite their calculated nature. Her own voice remained steady as she repeated similar sentiments, a performance worthy of acclaim. The weight of the platinum band sliding onto her finger felt like a shackle disguised as jewelry. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The kiss, their first, lasted precisely 2 seconds. Dominic's lips pressed against hers with perfect pressure for the photographers, neither passionate nor cold. A master class in appearance. The reception sparkled with champagne, laughter, and carefully orchestrated moments. They shared their first dance to Ella Fitzgerald's At Last, moving together with surprising grace. Dominic led confidently, his hand at the small of her back providing gentle guidance. "You dance well," she murmured, maintaining her smile for watching guests. 7 years of lessons as a child," he replied. "My mother insisted." The casual mention of his family startled her. In all their preparations, Dominic had never spoken of his parents or childhood. His official biography mentioned only that he was raised in Boston by a single mother now deceased. "Tell me about her," Aria prompted, curious about this unexpected glimpse behind his armor. His expression softened momentarily. "She was a dance instructor, barely made ends meet, but somehow found money for my education." The moment of vulnerability vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Your college roommate at 3 o'clock. She's been watching us suspiciously all evening." Mia indeed observed them with narrowed eyes from beside the champagne fountain. Unlike Aria's mother, Mia knew the truth, the only friend Aria had trusted with the reality of her arrangement. "She's protective," Aria explained. "She should be." Dominic's gaze swept the room with practiced awareness. The Nakamura contingent has arrived. Smile wider. An elegant Japanese couple approached, bowing formally before offering congratulations. Mr. Nakamura, the patriarch whose family values business practices had necessitated this entire charade, studied them with shrewd eyes. "Marriage suits you, Vega-san," he observed. "You seem lighter." "Finding the right partner changes a man," Dominic replied smoothly, drawing Aria closer to his side. "Aria has brought balance to my life." "And you, Mrs. Vega?" Mrs. Nakamura asked gently. "What has marriage brought you?" The question caught Aria unprepared. "Perspective," she answered truthfully. "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns." The Nakamuras exchanged meaningful glances. "The best partnerships are those where both parties grow stronger together," Mr. Nakamura said. "I look forward to seeing how yours develops." As they moved away, Dominic's posture relaxed marginally. "Well handled," he murmured. "They're the key to everything." "Everything being?" Aria prompted. "Not here." His smile remained fixed as he guided her toward her parents' table. Throughout the evening, Aria caught glimpses of complexity in her new husband. The gentle way he assisted an elderly guest struggling with her chair, his genuine laugh at her father's nervous toast, the flash of irritation when a business associate made a crude joke about benefits of marriage, small moments that didn't align with his reputation for ruthlessness. During the cake cutting, his hand steadied hers, their fingers overlapping on the silver knife. "Almost done," he whispered, for her ears alone. "You're doing wonderfully." The simple encouragement, the first personal comment he'd made all day, caught her off guard. Was it part of the performance, or something genuine? As the reception neared its conclusion, tension gathered between Aria's shoulder blades. The wedding night loomed ahead, an awkward boundary they hadn't discussed in detail. Their agreement specified separate bedrooms, but what about tonight, when the honeymoon suite awaited and staff would deliver their luggage? Her mother pulled her aside during the final hour, eyes bright with champagne and emotion. "I know modern couples discuss everything beforehand, but I still want to say, marriage requires patience. The first night might be awkward, but you'll find your rhythm." Aria forced a smile through her mortification. "Mom, please." "I'm just saying," Margaret continued, patting her daughter's cheek. "He seems intense. Don't be intimidated. Marriage is about compromise." Across the room, Richard cornered Dominic in what appeared to be a tense conversation. Though their voices remained low, their body language spoke volumes. Richard leaning forward intently, Dominic listening with uncharacteristic patience. When the time came for their departure, Arya found herself guided through a tunnel of sparklers held by cheering guests. Dominic's hand at her waist felt simultaneously protective and possessive as he helped her into the waiting limousine. The privacy screen raised silently as they pulled away from the hotel. For the first time in 12 hours, they were truly alone. Dominic loosened his bow tie with a deep exhale, the first crack in his perfect composure. "You were flawless," he said, surprising her with what sounded like genuine admiration. "I couldn't have asked for a more convincing performance." "Years of corporate presentations," she replied, slipping off her painful heels with a sigh of relief. "Though none quite this elaborate. Your father threatened me," he mentioned casually, pouring 2 glasses of champagne from the limousine's bar. "He said if I ever hurt you, he would find ways to destroy me that I couldn't imagine." Arya accepted the offered glass. "That sounds like Dad. He loves you." Dominic's gaze turned distant. "That's valuable." Something in his tone suggested personal meaning behind the observation. Another brief glimpse behind his facade before the shutters closed again. The limousine glided through nighttime streets toward the 5-star hotel, where they would spend their wedding night before departing for a honeymoon neither wanted, but appearances demanded. Tomorrow they would fly to the Maldives for 2 weeks of photographed bliss, separate bungalows arranged discreetly for when cameras weren't present. Arya stared at her reflection in the limousine window, a stranger in white lace and diamonds. Mrs. Dominic Vega, a name that would define her for at least the next year. "What did your father say to you?" Dominic asked suddenly. "Before this ceremony?" She considered deflecting but opted for honesty. "He offered me one last chance to back out. Why didn't you take it?" 312 families, she replied, the familiar refrain steady on her lips. Dominic studied her with unexpected intensity. "Your capacity for sacrifice is remarkable. Is it a sacrifice if you receive something in return?" she countered. His smile held no humor. "Always." The limousine slowed as they approached the hotel where staff waited to usher them to the honeymoon suite. Before the door opened, Dominic turned to her with sudden seriousness. "Whatever happens next, remember this was never about you personally. You were simply the most suitable candidate for a necessary role." The statement should have been comforting. Instead, it left her with a hollow feeling as they stepped out to face flashing cameras and congratulatory hotel staff. "I'd like to pause here and ask you all a question. How much would you compromise in a relationship or marriage? Would you enter a relationship knowing it had an expiration date? What about marrying for reasons beyond love, security, family expectations, or even business? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you've ever found yourself making unexpected compromises in relationships. And if this story of appearances versus reality resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more complex human stories every day. The presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton occupied the entire top floor of the hotel, offering panoramic city views through floor-to-ceiling windows. Rose petals formed a path from the entrance to the master bedroom. Champagne chilled in a silver bucket beside a massive king bed adorned with silk pillows. Candlelight cast golden shadows across the luxurious space, a perfect honeymoon setting for the romance that existed only in public imagination. As the door closed behind them, Arya and Dominic stood in awkward silence. The weight of performance had exhausted them both, leaving an emptiness in its wake. "I should change," Arya finally said, gesturing toward her elaborate gown. "This isn't exactly comfortable." Dominic nodded, loosening his tie completely and removing his jacket. "The staff brought your luggage to the dressing room. I'll wait out here." Alone in the marble bathroom, Arya methodically removed the trappings of bridal perfection. Diamond earrings returned to their velvet box, hairpins extracted one by one until her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders. Makeup scrubbed away with gentle cleansing cloths, revealing the natural face beneath the artifice. The wedding gown, a masterpiece of craftsmanship, required assistance with its intricate row of buttons. After struggling for several minutes, Arya reluctantly wrapped herself in a plush hotel robe and returned to the main room. "I need help with the dress," she explained, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. Dominic had changed into black pants and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He approached with unexpected hesitation. "Turn around." His fingers worked efficiently down her spine, freeing each tiny pearl button from its loop. The occasional brush of his knuckles against her skin sent involuntary shivers along her nerves. "Done," he announced, stepping back immediately. "I'll wait in the living room while you change." When Arya emerged 20 minutes later in silk pajamas and the hotel's robe, she found Dominic standing by the windows, city lights reflecting in the glass before him. A leather portfolio lay on the coffee table, its presence incongruous with the romantic setting. He turned at her approach, his expression unreadable. "Would you like champagne?" "I think I've had enough for one day," she declined, eyeing the portfolio. "What's that?" Dominic hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty from a man known for decisive action. There's something I need to explain. He gestured toward the sofa, waiting until she sat before joining her, maintaining a respectful distance. His usual composure seemed strained, fingers tapping briefly against his thigh before he stilled them. Our arrangement, he began carefully, is not exactly what I initially presented. Arya tensed. Meaning? Rather than explaining, he opened the portfolio and slid it toward her. This might be easier to understand if you see it directly. Inside lay several documents, meticulously prepared with color-coded tabs for signatures. The first page bore a title that stopped her breath, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. Divorce papers? Confusion and alarm battled in her mind. We've been married for 6 hours. They're post-dated, Dominic explained, his voice softening. Effective 1 year from today. As she flipped through the portfolio, more documents emerged, a separate property agreement protecting her assets, transfer papers for 30% of Vega Industries shares in her name, guarantees of continued support for Chen Innovations regardless of their marital status. I don't understand, she whispered, fingers trembling slightly as she examined each page. Why give me divorce papers on our wedding night? Dominic stood, moving toward the windows again as if physical distance might make the explanation easier. Because I want you to know exactly where you stand from the beginning. This marriage has a defined endpoint. You aren't trapped indefinitely. You're giving me an escape route? I'm giving you clarity. He turned to face her. And freedom. The irony wasn't lost on her. Freedom through marriage. That's a new concept. For the first time since she'd met him, Dominic Vega looked genuinely uncomfortable. He ran a hand through his usually perfect hair, displacing it in a way that suddenly made him appear more human. I should explain about the Nakamura Group, he said, moving to pour himself a glass of water. They're a Japanese conglomerate, specializing in advanced medical technology. Fourth-generation family business with traditional values that extend to their business practices. Arya nodded, recalling the elegant couple from their wedding. The people you introduced me to at the reception, Hiroshi Nakamura controls access to revolutionary semiconductor technology that would transform medical devices globally. Chen Innovations' glucose monitoring system could be completely reinvented with their components. Understanding began to dawn. That's why you rescued my father's company. You need their technology. Partially. Dominic's expression remained serious. The Nakamura Group refuses to partner with companies led by unmarried executives. Their corporate philosophy centers on stability, family values, and long-term thinking. In their view, marriage demonstrates commitment to something beyond immediate profit. So you needed a wife to close a business deal, Arya summarized, the pieces fitting together. Why me specifically? Dominic hesitated before answering. The timing aligned with your father's crisis. But there were other considerations. Your business background means you understand corporate functions. You're poised, educated, and capable of navigating social situations. You had no existing romantic entanglements to complicate matters. You researched me, she realized. Thoroughly, he admitted without apology. I needed someone who could perform convincingly without requiring extensive training. Arya digested this information, connecting threads between their first meeting and tonight. The Nakamura deal. What's the timeline? 6 months of negotiations with formal signing scheduled for our 6-month anniversary. The marriage needs to appear stable throughout implementation, which requires another 6 months. His precision was clinical, hence the 1-year time frame. And the divorce papers? Insurance for both of us. Dominic returned to sit across from her. You have guaranteed freedom after fulfilling your obligation. I have assurance that the arrangement remains temporary. Arya studied him, searching for deception but finding none. Why are you telling me this now? Why not wait until the deal is secured? Something flickered in his eyes, perhaps guilt, or a more complex emotion she couldn't name. Because forcing someone into marriage under false pretenses crossed a line, even for me. You deserve to know the complete truth from the beginning. The honesty was unexpected. Arya glanced again at the portfolio, particularly the share transfer documents. 30% of your company is excessive for a 1-year arrangement. It's fair compensation for what I'm asking of you. His gaze was direct. That share makes you wealthy independently of any divorce settlement. Your father's company remains secure regardless of our marital status. The sofa cushion shifted as he reached for a remote control, activating a gas fireplace across the room. The sudden warmth contrasted with the clinical nature of their conversation. There's one more thing, Dominic added, his voice quieter. The separate bedrooms arrangement remains in effect. You'll never be expected to. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Fulfill any physical aspects of marriage. That boundary is absolute. Relief mingled with an unexpected twinge of something like disappointment, quickly dismissed. So this entire marriage is just for appearances? Yes. He met her eyes directly. I'm not looking for a real wife, Arya, just the appearance of one. The statement should have been comforting. Instead, it prompted a question she hadn't considered before. Why? Beyond the Nakamura requirements, I mean. You could have found someone willing to be a real partner. You're not exactly short on options. For the first time, Dominic looked genuinely uncomfortable. He stood abruptly, moving away as if her question had touched something painful. I have my reasons, he answered, voice suddenly distant. They're personal. The wall between them returned, the careful businessman replacing the momentary glimpse of humanity. He collected a pillow and blanket from the bedroom, placing them on the sofa. You should take the bedroom, he said. I'll sleep out here. Arya remained seated, processing everything she'd learned. The arrangement was simultaneously worse and better than she'd anticipated. The marriage was indeed a business transaction, but one with a defined endpoint. She wasn't trapped indefinitely. Her sacrifice had clear parameters, yet questions lingered about Dominic himself. What kind of man arranged a temporary marriage with such careful provisions for his bride's eventual freedom? What personal reasons made him avoid a genuine relationship despite his wealth, power, and appearance? The Nakamura deal, she said suddenly, remembering something. Does it involve my father's glucose monitoring technology? Dominic nodded. With their semiconductor components, the side effects could be eliminated. The recalibrated system would save thousands of lives annually. You're not just rescuing my father's company. You're reviving his life's work. Something like discomfort crossed his features. It's a profitable venture. The humanitarian aspect is secondary, but Arya caught the deflection. For all his calculated business logic, Dominic had chosen a solution that saved Chen Innovations rather than dismantling it. He'd structured their arrangement to provide her with financial independence. He'd given her divorce papers on their wedding night to ensure she understood her freedom. These weren't the actions of the ruthless predator business media portrayed. Thank you, she said quietly, for clarity, and for saving my father's company. Dominic appeared momentarily startled by her gratitude. It's a business decision, with unusually humane parameters. Arya stood, gathering the portfolio. Good night, Dominic. As she turned toward the bedroom, his voice stopped her. Arya. She looked back to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't interpret. I'm sorry it came to this. In another life, perhaps we would have met differently. The unexpected sentiment lingered in her mind as she closed the bedroom door. Alone in the luxurious king bed meant for a genuine honeymoon, Arya reviewed the day's events with a new perspective. She'd married a stranger who had no intention of being her husband in any meaningful sense. She'd committed to a year of pretense with a man whose true nature remained mysterious. Yet the weight pressing on her chest had lightened somewhat. The divorce papers represented an end date to her obligation. The financial provisions ensured her dreams for Prism remained viable. Most importantly, the 312 families at Chen Innovations were secure. As sleep finally claimed her in the early morning hours, Arya realized she faced a new challenge she hadn't anticipated. For the next year, she would share a home, public appearances, and carefully constructed fiction with Dominic Vega. They would present themselves as a loving couple while maintaining careful distance behind closed doors. The question wasn't whether she could maintain the pretense. The question was whether the line between performance and reality would remain clear as days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Isn't it remarkable how quickly our perceptions can change? At the beginning of this story, we viewed Dominic as a callous businessman forcing Arya into marriage. Now we're seeing hints of something more complex. Have you ever misjudged someone, only to discover hidden depths to their character? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on Dominic's revelation. Would you feel relieved or suspicious if you were in Arya's position? And don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying these unexpected twists. Married life began with a peculiar formality. The day after their return from a 2-week honeymoon in the Maldives, a photogenic affair with strategic public displays of affection, and separate bungalows connected by a private walkway, Dominic presented Arya with a daily schedule. I typically leave by 6:30 a.m. and return after 8 p.m., he explained over breakfast, sliding a tablet across the table. My assistant has programmed our joint appearances in red. Your private time is in blue. Green indicates events where my presence is expected but not required. Arya scrolled through the meticulously organized calendar. You've scheduled everything down to charity lunches 3 months from now? Predictability minimizes complications, he replied, not looking up from his financial reports. The household staff operate Monday through Saturday. Sundays they're off unless we're entertaining. The kitchen is stocked weekly according to preferences. If you have specific requests, inform Mrs. Winters, the house manager. And what about... Arya hesitated, searching for the right words. Day-to-day interactions? How do we handle those? Dominic finally met her gaze. Common courtesy should suffice. We're adults sharing living space, not enemies forced into combat. The clinical approach to cohabitation established their initial pattern. They existed in parallel, occupying the same spacious penthouse while rarely intersecting. Dominic maintained punishing work hours, often leaving before dawn and returning after Arya had retired. When their paths crossed, conversation remained superficial, pleasantries about weather, scheduling confirmations, or brief updates about upcoming events. The east and west wings of the penthouse became their respective territories. Arya transformed her suite into a sanctuary, adding personal touches that softened the designer perfection. Books stacked on bedside tables, family photos arranged on shelves, a comfortable reading chair positioned to capture afternoon sunlight, small claims of identity in a space that otherwise reflected Dominic's minimalist aesthetic. Their first test as a convincing couple came 3 weeks after the wedding, a charity gala benefiting children's medical research. As they prepared to depart, Arya emerged from her bedroom to find Dominic waiting in the foyer, adjusting his cufflinks. He looked up, momentarily stilled by her appearance in a midnight blue gown that contrasted elegantly with her dark hair. "You look..." He paused, searching for appropriate phrasing, very suitable for the occasion. "High praise," she responded with light sarcasm, accepting her wrap from the waiting attendant. In the limousine, Dominic shifted into strategic mode. "The Richardson Foundation Board will be watching us closely tonight. They're considering Vega Industries for their medical technology initiative, and they care about your marital status because the foundation emphasizes family values. Their chairman believes executives with stable personal lives make more trustworthy partners." He checked his watch with characteristic precision. "We should display comfortable affection without excessive demonstration." "How romantic," Arya murmured. His gaze flickered toward her. "This is performance, not romance." Yet when they stepped onto the red carpet, transformation occurred. Dominic's hands settled at the small of her back with practiced ease. His expression softened when he looked at her, creating the perfect illusion of a man still captivated by his new bride. When photographers called for poses, he drew her closer with gentle authority, his smile appearing genuinely warm. "Mrs. Vega," reporters called out. "How's married life treating you?" Arya matched his performance with polished grace, brilliantly. "Though I'm still getting used to the name." "Any honeymoon babies on the horizon?" another shouted brazenly. Dominic intervened smoothly. "We're enjoying being newlyweds for now. Some journeys deserve private exploration." Inside the ballroom, their choreography continued. His hand rarely left hers as they navigated the crowd. He introduced her with pride to business associates, standing attentively as she engaged in conversation. When the orchestra began, he led her to the dance floor with practiced ease. "The Richardson chairman is watching from the corner," he murmured against her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "Laugh as though I've said something charming," Arya complied, tilting her head back with practiced delight. "Like this?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps. "You're remarkably good at this. 8 years in corporate marketing teaches you to sell products you don't necessarily believe in," she replied, maintaining her smile. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. "Is that how you see this marriage? A product? Isn't that exactly what it is? A temporary solution with market benefits for both parties?" The question seemed to trouble him, though his public smile never wavered. "Perhaps, but not all business arrangements need to be adversarial." As weeks became months, they refined their public performance to near perfection. Society columns praised their obvious devotion. Business publications noted how marriage had humanized Dominic Vega. The formerly aloof CEO now frequently photographed gazing at his wife with apparent adoration. Behind closed doors, their arrangement remained precisely that, an arrangement, yet small shifts occurred in their private interactions. Morning coffee sometimes extended into brief conversations about upcoming meetings. Evening returns occasionally overlapped, leading to shared nightcaps and discussions of their respective days. The Chen glucose monitoring project passed initial testing. Dominic mentioned one evening, loosening his tie as he accepted the whiskey Arya offered. "Your father's research combined with Nakamura technology has eliminated the side effects completely." Arya paused, surprised by the update. "You've been working on that personally?" "It's a priority project." He sipped his drink, avoiding her gaze. "The potential impact justifies the attention." Another evening, she found him reviewing photographs from their latest public appearance, a tennis charity event where they had played as partners against another corporate couple. "Analyzing our performance?" she asked, passing behind his chair. "Ensuring consistency," he corrected. "Public perception matters, especially with the Nakamura signing approaching." The signing ceremony, scheduled for their 6-month anniversary, loomed as the critical test of their arrangement. Japanese business culture valued harmony and authenticity. The Nakamuras would be watching closely for any signs of discord in their marriage. "We should discuss strategies," Dominic suggested 2 weeks before the event. "The ceremony includes a 3-day retreat at their private estate. Maintaining appearances will be more challenging with extended exposure." The conversation marked their first formal strategy session since the wedding. Seated at the dining table with calendars and briefing documents spread between them, they planned their approach with tactical precision. Their culture values subtle affection rather than overt displays, Dominic explained. Hand-holding, attentive listening, speaking positively about each other to third parties. Arya nodded, making notes. What about personal questions? They'll likely ask about our relationship. Truthful answers whenever possible. Fiction only where necessary. His gaze was direct. The best deceptions contain elements of truth. While their private relationship remained professional, Arya discovered unexpected benefits to her new status. As Mrs. Dominic Vega, doors opened that had previously remained closed. Invitations arrived to exclusive women's leadership forums. Board positions were offered at prestigious foundations. Her opinions were solicited by business publications that had previously ignored her. Initially, she hesitated to leverage these opportunities, concerned they stemmed solely from her married name rather than her capabilities. You should accept the Wilson Foundation board seat, Dominic commented when she mentioned the offer. Their work in educational access aligns with your interests. They're only asking because I'm your wife, she pointed out. His expression remained neutral. They're asking because you're qualified. My name simply bypassed the waiting period. Gradually, Arya began accepting select positions, choosing carefully to align with her values and future plans. The experiences provided valuable insights and connections for her eventual launch of Prism, her marketing consultancy for female entrepreneurs. One morning, reviewing the social pages over breakfast, she noticed something significant. This article refers to me as marketing executive Arya Chen Vega, rather than just Dominic Vega's wife. Dominic glanced at the newspaper. Your reputation is building independently. That was always possible, was it? She challenged me. Would these opportunities have come without the Vega connection? Perhaps not as quickly, he conceded, but they would have come eventually. Your capabilities would have ensured that the unexpected vote of confidence lingered with her throughout the day. 4 months into their marriage, Arya attended a women's leadership luncheon where she was invited to speak about marketing strategies for emerging businesses. As she presented to the room of accomplished executives, she noticed a familiar figure at the back, Dominic, having slipped in quietly to observe. When she finished to enthusiastic applause, he disappeared before she could approach him. Later that evening, she found a handwritten note on her desk. Your presentation was exceptional. You undersold your abilities during our negotiations. D. The simple acknowledgement of her professional skills, completely separate from their arrangement, affected her more deeply than expected. That night, lying awake in her separate bedroom, Arya confronted an uncomfortable reality. The boundaries in their arranged marriage were beginning to blur, not through romantic entanglement, but through something potentially more complicated, genuine respect. She was developing a grudging admiration for Dominic's business acumen, ethical standards with employees, and unexpected depth beneath his controlled exterior. Worse, she occasionally caught him watching her with an expression that suggested similar reassessment. They had agreed to a transaction, a year of performance followed by clean separation. They had not agreed to actually knowing each other as people. Yet knowledge was accumulating daily through proximity and observation, creating complications neither had anticipated. The most dangerous boundary remained untested, physical attraction carefully contained behind professional courtesy. Neither acknowledged the current that sometimes charged the air between them during rare moments of genuine connection, when pretense temporarily fell away. Their arrangement specified separate lives eventually resuming. But as month 4 turned to 5, with the crucial Nakamura signing approaching, Arya wondered whether clean separation would prove as straightforward as their contract suggested. If you're enjoying this journey of two strangers navigating their complex arrangement, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now. In the next part of our story, we'll see what happens when a business crisis forces Arya and Dominic to truly work together for the first time, revealing secrets about his past that he's kept hidden from everyone, including his paper bride. You won't want to miss the moment that changes everything between them. Subscribe now so you don't miss a single episode of their extraordinary story. The crisis erupted without warning 5 months into their marriage, just 2 weeks before the Nakamura signing ceremony. Dominic was in Tokyo finalizing contract details when news broke of a massive data breach at Vega Industries. Confidential patient information from their medical technology division had been compromised, potentially exposing thousands of vulnerable individuals. Arya first learned of the situation from a 3 a.m. news alert on her phone. Within minutes, Dominic called from Tokyo, his voice tight with controlled tension. It's worse than the media knows, he said without preamble. The breach targeted our development servers containing Chen's glucose monitoring research and Nakamura integration data. Industrial espionage? Arya asked, instantly alert, despite the hour. Almost certainly. The attack signature matches previous attempts by Meridian Medical, our main competitor for the Nakamura partnership. His breathing sounded carefully measured. I'm flying back immediately, but the PR response can't wait. The press conference is scheduled for noon tomorrow. Arya switched on her bedside lamp, already reaching for her laptop. What's the official position? That's why I'm calling. A brief pause conveyed his reluctance. I need your help. The admission of need from a man who prided himself on self-sufficiency spoke volumes about the severity of the situation. Without hesitation, Arya shifted into crisis management mode. Send me everything you have. I'll draft a preliminary statement and assemble a response team. By morning, the data breach dominated financial news. Vega Industries' stock plummeted 15% at the opening bell. Medical privacy advocates demanded investigations. Patients' rights groups threatened lawsuits. Most concerning, the Nakamura Group issued a terse statement expressing deep concern about security protocols at potential partner organizations. When Dominic's private jet landed at 11 a.m., Arya waited on the tarmac, tablet in hand with the crisis response plan ready for review. His appearance shocked her. Usually immaculate, he looked exhausted, his crisp composure fractured by 20 hours of emergency management from 35,000 feet. The press conference, he began, is handled, she assured him, guiding him toward the waiting car. I've prepared your statement, briefed the executive team, and established a dedicated response unit. We have 30 minutes to review before we go live. Inside the vehicle, she handed him a coffee prepared precisely as he preferred it. Black, single-origin Ethiopian. He accepted it with a look of surprise. You remembered how I took my coffee. I noticed details, she replied, opening her tablet to display the strategy. Here's our approach. As they drove, Arya outlined her plan, acknowledging the breach immediately, emphasizing patient protection measures already implemented, and announcing a comprehensive security overhaul. Most crucially, she had identified a narrative angle focusing on Vega Industries' commitment to vulnerable patients. We're not just protecting data, she explained. We're protecting people with chronic conditions who depend on our research. That's the story we need to tell. Dominic reviewed her work with growing appreciation. This is exceptional crisis management. 8 years at Maxwell & Reed included 3 major product recalls and a CEO scandal, she explained. I learned quickly. At Vega headquarters, they found controlled chaos. The executive team had assembled in the crisis command center established overnight. Security personnel monitored systems while PR staff fielded hundreds of media inquiries. Legal teams assessed liability while IT specialists traced the breach origin. Dominic moved through the room with calm authority, absorbing updates and issuing directives. Arya observed a side of him she'd never witnessed. Not the calculated businessman nor the charming public persona, but a leader whose presence steadied those around him. What's the employee impact? He asked his CTO, a question that caught Arya's attention. Minimal data exposure for staff, the executive replied, but significant overtime required for the security overhaul. Implement hazard pay at triple rates, Dominic instructed without hesitation, and immediate family support services for anyone experiencing harassment from the media. As noon approached, Dominic reviewed the final statement one last time. You'll stand with me, he said to Arya, not a question but a declaration. Of course. Their eyes met briefly, silent understanding passing between them. For the first time, they were truly partners facing a common challenge rather than actors performing assigned roles. The press conference proceeded according to Arya's carefully crafted strategy. Dominic delivered the statement with appropriate gravity, acknowledging the breach while emphasizing the company's commitment to patients and research integrity. When questioned about potential impacts on the Nakamura partnership, he remained steady. Security challenges affect every organization in the digital age, he stated. What defines a company is not whether they face attacks, but how they respond to protect their stakeholders. Afterward, as they returned to the crisis room, Arya noticed Dominic's unusual pallor. When did you last eat? He dismissed the concern. That's irrelevant right now. It's entirely relevant if you collapse during our emergency board meeting in 30 minutes, she countered, directing an assistant to bring food. The crisis stretched into the evening as they worked to contain fallout. When preliminary forensic results confirmed Meridian Medical's involvement in the breach, Dominic's expression hardened. Their CEO, Lawrence Phillips, has been trying to undermine us for years, he explained as they reviewed evidence in his office. We competed at business school. He's never forgiven me for graduating first. Seems excessive for an old academic rivalry, Arya observed. Dominic's gaze turned distant. It goes deeper. His father's company once employed my mother as an administrative assistant. She reported financial irregularities and was fired without references or severance. We nearly became homeless. His voice remained controlled, but Arya caught the undercurrent of old pain. She worked 3 jobs afterward to put me through college. The personal revelation, the first he'd shared voluntarily, hung between them as his phone rang with an incoming call from Japan. Mr. Nakamura himself was requesting a video conference. This could end the partnership, Dominic acknowledged, straightening his tie. The Japanese value security and propriety above all else. Arya placed a steadying hand on his arm, their first non-performative touch in months of marriage. We'll face it together. On the video call, Mr. Nakamura's expression remained impassive as Dominic explained their response to the breach. When he finished, the Japanese businessman studied him silently. In my experience, the Vega San crisis reveals a person's true character, Nakamura finally said. Your concern today was for patients and employees rather than stock prices or reputation. This tells me much about your priorities. The people affected by our work must always come first, Dominic replied simply. Nakamura nodded. My father taught me to judge a business by how it treats its most vulnerable stakeholders. His severe expression softened marginally. We will proceed with our partnership as planned, with additional security protocols implemented. After the call ended, relief briefly overwhelmed Dominic's composure. He sat heavily in his chair, passing a hand over his face in a rare display of vulnerability. You handled that perfectly, Arya said quietly. We handled it, he corrected, meeting her gaze. Your strategy made the difference. As midnight approached, with immediate concerns addressed and longer-term solutions in motion, Dominic insisted on driving Arya home himself rather than calling the car service. The unusual gesture highlighted the shift in their dynamic. In the privacy of his Aston Martin, exhaustion lowered defenses that normally stood firm between them. Arya noticed his white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel, the tension radiating from his shoulders. The data breach wasn't random, was it? She asked. Phillips targeted the glucose monitoring research specifically. Dominic's jaw tightened. He knows what it means to me. Because of the Nakamura deal? Because of what the technology represents? At a red light, he finally looked at her directly. My mother died from diabetes complications when I was 22. Inadequate monitoring led to a critical episode while she was alone at night. The admission stunned Arya into silence. Suddenly, his personal investment in her father's research made perfect sense. The ruthless businessman who acquired companies without sentiment had championed a medical device that might have saved his mother's life. That's why you rescued Chen Innovations, she realized. Not just for the Nakamura partnership. The partnership makes it financially viable, he corrected, his professional mask slipping back into place. But yes, the technology itself matters to me. As they reached the penthouse, exhaustion prevented further conversation. They rode the elevator in comfortable silence, the shared crisis having established a new understanding between them. At her bedroom door, Arya paused. You could have told me about your mother, about why the glucose monitoring system mattered personally. Would it have changed your perception of our arrangement? He asked. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes before he controlled it. Perhaps that's why I didn't tell you. He stepped back, maintaining the careful distance their arrangement required. Good night, Arya. Good night, Dominic. Alone in her room, Arya reviewed the day's revelations. The controlled, calculating CEO had shown unexpected depths, principles that prioritized people over profits, a personal history that informed his present actions, and a capacity for genuine partnership when circumstances demanded it. The man she'd married on paper was proving more complex than their contract suggested. The data breach created cracks in Dominic's carefully maintained facade, allowing Arya glimpses of the man beneath the reputation. The question was whether those cracks would widen to reveal more truth, or whether he would seal them more firmly than before. How often do we misjudge people based on their reputation or our first impression? Today's story shows how a crisis can reveal someone's true character when pressure strips away their usual defenses. Have you ever discovered unexpected depths in someone you thought you had figured out? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Nakamura signing ceremony marked the 6th month of their marriage, halfway to their contractual endpoint. Held at the Japanese conglomerate's private estate outside Kyoto, the 3-day event combined business formalities with cultural celebrations honoring the historic partnership. Beneath blooming cherry trees, Dominic and Arya played their roles with practiced perfection. They stood side by side as contracts were signed, exchanged meaningful glances during formal speeches, and navigated traditional tea ceremonies with respectful precision. To all observers, they embodied the ideal business power couple, competent, complementary, connected. Yet something had shifted between them since the data breach crisis. Their performances now contained moments of genuine warmth that neither had consciously choreographed. When Dominic's hand settled at Arya's waist during photographs, the gesture felt less calculated. When she adjusted his tie before meetings, the brief intimacy seemed natural rather than staged. "You make a formidable team," Mrs. Nakamura observed during a garden stroll, her perceptive gaze moving between them. "Many marriages begin with passion but lack partnership. Yours seems built on a deeper foundation." The comment lingered with Arya long after the ceremony concluded. On their return flight, she watched Dominic reviewing implementation documents, his focus absolute. The man she'd married for business purposes had gradually revealed layers she hadn't anticipated, principles, vulnerabilities, and complexity beyond his calculating exterior. "The Chen glucose monitoring system enters production next month," he mentioned, sensing her attention. "First units available to patients by quarter's end." "My father must be thrilled," she replied. His life's work was finally realized. Dominic nodded, closing his laptop. He's been instrumental in the final design modifications. His expertise with enzyme calibration proved critical. Their conversation flowed with new ease, discussing business developments, implementation challenges, and strategic considerations without the awkward formality that had previously defined their private interactions. As the plane began its descent, Dominic surprised her with an unexpected question. "Would you be interested in heading the marketing launch for the monitoring system? Your work during the data breach demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking." Arya studied him, searching for ulterior motives but finding none. "You're offering me a professional role? I'm acknowledging your capabilities." His gaze was direct. The position would be based on merit, not marital status. The offer represented something significant, recognition of her as a professional separate from their arrangement. "I'd need complete creative control," she replied, testing boundaries. "Naturally, the marketing division would report to you directly for this project." 2 weeks later, Arya found herself leading a dedicated team at Vega Industries, developing the global marketing strategy for the glucose monitoring launch. The role energized her, combining her marketing expertise with her father's medical technology in ways she hadn't anticipated. Dominic attended her initial presentation to the executive team, observing from the back of the conference room as she outlined her comprehensive approach. His subtle nod of approval as she fielded challenging questions boosted her confidence. "The campaign should focus on patient empowerment," she explained, displaying mock-ups of the proposed messaging. "This isn't just another medical device. It's freedom from constant worry, from painful monitoring, from middle-of-the-night emergencies." Later, reviewing the presentation materials in his office, Dominic paused at her tagline, "Freedom to live fully." "This resonates personally," he admitted quietly. "My mother's condition controlled every aspect of her life. Constant vigilance, limited activities, perpetual anxiety." The rare mention of his mother created an opening. "Tell me about her," Arya prompted gently. Dominic was silent so long she thought he'd ignore the request. Then, setting aside the presentation materials, he moved to gaze out his office windows. Elena Vega, dance instructor, single mother, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 23. His voice carried carefully controlled emotion. She refused to let it define her life, but it shaped everything. What she ate, when she slept, how she planned each day. "She sounds remarkable." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She worked 3 jobs to afford my education, never complained about the hours or the toll on her health. Believed education was the path to security we'd never had." The personal revelation invited reciprocity. "My mother wanted me to be a doctor," Arya shared. "She was disappointed when I chose marketing instead." "What changed her mind?" "Seeing my first major campaign succeed. She finally understood I could make an impact in my own way." Arya paused, considering how much to reveal. "Parents leave such complicated legacies, don't they?" "Indeed." Dominic turned from the window, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. "My mother's final instructions were to build something meaningful that helped others." Vega Industries began with her life insurance policy. The conversation marked a turning point. Their shared work on the glucose monitoring launch created natural opportunities for collaboration that extended beyond their public performance. Late nights reviewing marketing strategies evolved into dinner discussions about healthcare accessibility. Weekend preparation for medical conference presentations became conversations about their respective backgrounds and values. 7 months into their marriage, they attended the Medical Technology Gala, where they'd made their first public appearance as an engaged couple. Now, moving through the same ballroom, their interactions carried authentic comfort that required no rehearsal. "We've come a long way from that first night," Arya observed as they shared a quiet moment on the terrace. "Remember how you whispered names and details about everyone we met?" Dominic's smile held genuine warmth. "You were nervous but determined. I admired your composure." "I was terrified," she confessed, convinced everyone would see through our arrangement. "And now?" The question carried implications neither was prepared to address directly. Now they moved in synchronized understanding. Now their touches lingered without performance purposes. Now, their private conversations extended beyond necessary coordination into genuine interest. "Now it's easier," she replied carefully. The shift manifested in small moments that accumulated significance. When Dominic developed a fever after returning from an international trip, Arya found herself bringing soup to his bedroom and checking his temperature through the night. When she mentioned her upcoming birthday, he rearranged meetings to accompany her to dinner with her parents. No cameras or business associates present. Simply a personal gesture. Their domestic patterns evolved naturally. Morning coffee became a shared ritual rather than accidental timing. Evening returns synchronized without explicit coordination. Weekends occasionally included joint activities, a gallery opening, a hiking trail, a cooking class, justified as maintaining appearances, though no photographers documented these private moments. The watershed moment occurred 8 months into their marriage, during a severe thunderstorm that knocked out power to their building. Emergency generators maintained essential systems but left much of the penthouse in darkness. Arya found Dominic in the kitchen, arranging candles on the counter. "The backup system should restore full power within an hour," he explained, striking a match. "But I thought these might help meanwhile." As lightning illuminated the room, Arya noticed his unusual tension. Tight shoulders, controlled breathing, gaze avoiding the windows. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Fine." His curt response contradicted his body language. Thunder cracked directly overhead, rattling the windows. Dominic flinched visibly, his composed facade momentarily fracturing. Understanding dawned. "You don't like storms. Childish, I know." His self-deprecation couldn't mask genuine discomfort. Not at all. Arya moved closer, guided by instinct rather than calculation. "My father's afraid of heights. My best friend can't stand elevators. Everyone has something." Another lightning flash, another thunderclap. Dominic's knuckles whitened against the counter edge. "My mother and I lived in a basement apartment when I was young," he explained, words emerging with reluctance. "During a major storm, it flooded while she was at work. I was trapped for hours as the water rose." Without thinking, Arya placed her hand over his. "I'm sorry that happened to you." The simple touch, comfort freely offered without agenda, seemed to surprise him. His gaze dropped to their hands, then lifted to her face with naked vulnerability she'd never witnessed before. "Arya, The moment hung suspended between them, possibilities expanding in the candlelit kitchen. Then his phone chimed with an emergency alert, breaking the fragile connection. But something fundamental had changed. The carefully maintained boundaries of their arrangement had shifted irrevocably. The following day, neither mentioned the moment directly, yet their interactions carried new awareness. Hesitation before casual touches, glances that lingered then darted away, conversations that approached emotional territory before retreating to safer ground. As their one-year anniversary approached, tension built beneath their outward harmony. The post-dated divorce papers waited in Dominic's safe, a contractual endpoint to an arrangement that had evolved beyond its original parameters. Neither raised the subject directly. Instead, they focused on final implementation phases of the Nakamura partnership and the successful launch of the glucose monitoring system. Professional collaboration provided safe territory, while personal implications remained unaddressed. At the 10-month mark, Arya found herself analyzing their situation with marketing precision, identifying problems, evaluating options, considering messaging strategies. The irony wasn't lost on her. She could develop campaigns that moved millions to action but couldn't find words for the conflicted emotions within her own heart. The central conflict was simple yet impossible. Their arrangement had been predicated on temporary partnership, yet something genuine had developed within the artificial framework. Dominic Vega, the businessman she'd agreed to marry for pragmatic reasons, had become someone she genuinely respected, enjoyed, and increasingly cared for beyond rational explanation. The question hung unspoken between them. When their contract reached its endpoint, would they honor its provisions or acknowledge the unexpected reality that had developed in its shadow? During month 11, they attended a charity benefit where a well-meaning socialite asked about their first anniversary plans. Dominic fielded the question with practiced charm while Arya maintained her smile, both acutely aware that their marriage agreement didn't extend beyond that milestone. Later that night, returning to the penthouse in uncomfortable silence, Arya finally broached the subject they'd been avoiding. "We should discuss what happens after next month." Dominic's expression closed immediately. "The contract is clear. Circumstances have changed," she pressed. "The working relationship, the glucose monitoring project, our—" She hesitated, searching for appropriate terminology. "Collaborative dynamics." "Nothing has changed regarding our fundamental arrangement," he stated, voice cooling to the professional tone he'd used during their initial negotiations. "The marriage served its purpose. The Nakamura partnership is secure. Your father's company continues successfully. The contract concludes as agreed." His retreat behind formal business parameters stung more than Arya wanted to admit. So that's it? We simply file the papers and go our separate ways? That was always the plan. He loosened his tie with mechanical precision. Unless you're suggesting renegotiation for some practical purpose? The deliberate misinterpretation, reducing potential continuation to another business transaction, effectively closed the conversation. Arya recognized the defensive tactic for what it was, Dominic retreating behind his walls rather than acknowledging emotional complexity. No, she replied quietly. The original terms are perfectly adequate. As she turned toward her bedroom, his voice stopped her. Arya, she looked back to find conflict evident in his expression. I'm not, he began, then stopped, seeming to recalibrate. The arrangement worked because it had clear parameters. Introducing ambiguity would be unwise. The statement revealed more than he likely intended. Acknowledgement that something beyond contractual obligations had developed between them, coupled with fear of its implications. You're right, she agreed, maintaining her composure. Clarity matters in business arrangements. Alone in her room, Arya confronted the uncomfortable truth she'd been avoiding. Somewhere between performance and reality, between contract clauses and shared coffee, between public appearances and private conversations, the unthinkable had happened. She had developed genuine feelings for her paper husband. Friends, we're nearing the conclusion of Arya and Dominic's extraordinary journey. Will they follow through with their divorce as planned, or will they acknowledge what's growing between them? Hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now to make sure you don't miss the final chapter of their story. What would you do in their position? Sometimes the contracts we sign can't account for the feelings we develop. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and join us next time for the conclusion of this remarkable tale. 1 year after their wedding, the Chen glucose monitoring system entered the market to unprecedented acclaim. Medical journals praised its revolutionary approach. Patient advocacy groups celebrated its affordability and accuracy. Regulatory agencies across 3 continents fast-tracked approval based on exceptional clinical results. At the official launch event, Richard Chen received a standing ovation from the medical community. His life's work, nearly destroyed by failed trials and financial collapse, had transformed into groundbreaking technology that would save countless lives. None of this would have been possible without the Vega-Chen partnership, he acknowledged during his emotional speech, raising his glass toward Dominic and Arya seated at the head table. Some unions create more than the sum of their parts. The double meaning wasn't lost on either of them. As applause filled the ballroom, their eyes met briefly before both looked away. The divorce papers waited in Dominic's office safely. Their marriage contract had reached its endpoint. The Nakamura partnership had succeeded beyond projections. Chen Innovations flourished under renewed investment. Every contractual obligation had been fulfilled precisely as planned, yet neither had signed the prepared documents. In the week following the product launch, they maintained careful distance from each other and the unspoken decision looming before them. Dominic worked punishing hours, often not returning to the penthouse until Arya had retired. She focused on establishing her new marketing consultancy, Prism, leasing office space downtown and interviewing potential staff. Their carefully constructed parallel lives should have made separation logical, even simple. The prenuptial agreements outlined clear division of assets. Their professional lives could continue independently. The public narrative of amicable separation had been prepared by PR teams weeks earlier. Everything was arranged for a clean conclusion to their business arrangement, except for the unexpected truth neither was willing to acknowledge first. The breaking point came the evening before their anniversary, the date specified for filing divorce papers. Arya returned to the penthouse after finalizing lease arrangements for Prism's headquarters to find Dominic in the living room, uncharacteristically still in the middle of a workday. A familiar leather portfolio sat on the coffee table between them. I thought we should discuss tomorrow, he said, his composed expression betrayed by tension around his eyes. Arya set down her keys with deliberate calm. The filing deadline, yes, he gestured toward the portfolio. Everything is prepared according to our original agreement. Your 30% ownership of Vega Industries transfers immediately. Chen Innovations remains secure under current management. The penthouse remains yours if you wish to keep it. Generous terms, she acknowledged, remaining standing despite his gesture toward the sofa. Exactly as contracted. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken complications. Dominic's gaze remained fixed on the portfolio rather than meeting her eyes. Unless, he finally said, the single word hanging incomplete in the air between them. Unless, she prompted, when he didn't continue. Dominic stood abruptly, moving toward the windows in a rare display of restlessness. The arrangement has functioned efficiently. The business objectives have been achieved with optimal results. His retreat into corporate language told her everything about his emotional state. After a year of careful observation, she recognized his defense mechanisms, technical terminology creating distance when vulnerability threatened. Very efficient, she agreed, watching him carefully. A successful transaction by all metrics, precisely. He turned to face her, expression controlled, which raises the logical question of whether terminating a functional system serves any practical purpose. Arya felt her breath catch. Are you suggesting we extend the contract? I'm suggesting. He hesitated, visibly struggling with words that didn't come from business vocabulary. I'm suggesting we consider alternatives to our original conclusion. Based on what considerations? She pressed, needing clarity beyond corporate phrasing. Dominic's composure fractured slightly, based on changing variables that weren't accounted for in our initial agreement. What variables? His jaw tightened. You know exactly what I'm referring to, Arya. I need you to say it, she insisted quietly. No business terminology, no contractual language, just the truth. The request hung between them, challenging the careful boundaries they'd maintained, even as those boundaries had gradually eroded. Dominic's expression shifted through visible conflict before settling into unexpected vulnerability. I don't want this to end, he admitted, voice barely audible. I don't want to lose what we've built together. A simple honesty affected her more deeply than any elaborate declaration might have. What exactly have we built, Dominic? He moved closer, professional distance abandoned. Something I never anticipated. Something beyond contracts and appearances. His gaze held hers directly. Something real. When did it change for you? She asked, her own composure wavering. I don't know, his honesty continued. Perhaps during the data breach when you stepped forward as a true partner. Perhaps earlier, in quiet moments when performance gave way to genuine connection. He paused. When did it change for you? The thunderstorm, she answered without hesitation. When you showed me the person behind the CEO. When we connect as people rather than business associates. Dominic nodded slowly. I've built my life around contracts and clear terms. This, he gestured between them, was never in the agreement. No, she agreed. It wasn't. I'm not offering another business arrangement, Arya. His voice softened. I'm asking if you would consider building something genuine from these unexpected beginnings. The proposal hung between them, not a contract extension but something far more significant. A real marriage growing from the foundation of their arranged one. The papers are still valid, he added when she remained silent. If you prefer to maintain our original agreement, I'll respect that completely. Your shares, position, everything remains exactly as promised. Arya studied the man before her, so different from the calculating businessman who had proposed their arrangement a year earlier. Experience had revealed his principles, his vulnerabilities, his capacity for growth. The ruthless reputation that had preceded him had proven incomplete at best, misleading at worst. When we met, she said carefully, I thought I understood exactly who you were. The heartless CEO who saw people as assets or liabilities, who acquired companies without concern for human impact. He didn't deny the assessment. My reputation was earned through certain decisions, but incomplete, she continued. It missed your loyalty to employees during the crisis, your personal investment in life-saving technology, your respect for capability regardless of position. She moved closer, the man who honors his mother's memory by building something meaningful that helps others. Something like hope flickered in his expression. And that changes your perspective? It changes everything. Arya reached for the portfolio, lifting it from the table. I don't want these papers. For the first time in their year together, Dominic's control faltered completely. He closed the remaining distance between them, one hand lifting to touch her face with a gentleness that contradicted every harsh story about him. I never expected you, he confessed quietly. You were supposed to be a means to an end, a necessary component in a business strategy, and instead you became the most important person in my life. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. I don't want to return to who I was before you. The portfolio fell forgotten to the floor as the space between them finally closed, not for cameras or appearances, not for business partners or social observers, but for themselves alone. Their story had begun with signatures on contract pages. It would continue with something far more binding than legal documents could capture. Sometimes life brings us exactly what we need in packaging we never would have chosen. Arya and Dominic's journey reminds us that genuine connections can form in the most unlikely circumstances, and that people are often more complex than their reputations suggest. Their paper marriage had fulfilled its business purpose perfectly, but the real marriage beginning in its place promised something neither had included in their original calculations, happiness neither had been looking for, with a partner neither would have chosen. Thank you for joining us for this extraordinary story of unexpected beginnings and second chances. Remember that sometimes the most beautiful journeys start from practical arrangements, and the people we initially judge may surprise us with hidden depths. Until next time, I'm Mr. Ross, wishing you love and happiness in all your unexpected beginnings.